The topic is cross-domain and JSONP. So here we are going to learn the concept of single origin policy. Anybody has heard of single origin policy, or sometimes it's called the same origin policy? Actually, same origin policy is the right name, and some people call it single origin policy. Anybody has heard of it? Anybody not heard of it? Okay, looks like most of you have not heard of it. Okay. All right. Okay, good. We're going to talk about JSONP. It's called the JSON with padding, and this is to bypass this single origin policy constraint imposed by the browser. And then we are going to talk about cross-origin resource sharing, which is basically standard, W3C standard, to provide, again, the workaround around the same origin policy constraint. So what is same origin policy? The same origin policy prevents a document or a script loaded from one domain accessing a document or script from another domain. Okay? So in other words, same origin policy prevents cross-domain access. Okay? And we're going to talk about why this is the case. By the way, JavaScript codes are considered from same domain only if, or documents are considered from the same domain only if they are loaded from the sites that have the same protocol, same port, and same host. By the way, this same origin policy is imposed by browsers. So when your code loaded from server 1 is trying to access a document in domain 2, browser says, you cannot access that. Okay, so that's what you're going to experience, and we're going to actually do that in our hands-on lab. So same origin policy examples, as I said before, they are considered, documents and scripts are considered to be from the same domain only if the protocol, port, and hosts are the same. So let's see some examples. So JavaScript code loaded from store.company.com/the/page.html can access the following documents since they are considered from the same domain or same origin. Okay, so here they are using same protocol, HTTP, same host, store.company.com, and they are all using same port number, probably 8080. Okay, so these three guys are considered from the same domain. However, when this JavaScript code in this page is trying to access any document or JavaScript code from any of these three websites, they are considered from a different domain, and the browser will not allow you to access these documents. For example, HTTPS. So HTTP and HTTPS, they are considered two different protocols as far as the same origin policy is concerned. And this guy is using port 81, so it's using different port. So this one is using probably 80 or 8080. Okay, and they are considered to be different domain because they use a different port number. And of course, if they are from a different website, this is store.company.com, and this is news.company.com. So they are considered to be different domain. Okay, and in fact, the store and news, those could be in fact the subdomains of company.com, maybe. Okay, but they are considered two different domain as far as same origin policy is concerned. Okay, so why same origin policy in the first place? The browser imposed the same origin policy in order to prevent cross-site scripting security attack. Okay, so attackers could inject malicious script into web pages viewed by others. So you go to one website, you actually download the script, and if that script will actually, if that script is allowed to access some another site, okay, that some another site could actually contain some malicious code, and that malicious code should not be in fact accessible. Okay, to prevent this cross-site scripting security risk. So this is imposed by the browsers. Okay, And so in the hands-on lab, you are in fact you are going to actually experience this constraint. Okay. Now, what is the downside of the same origin policy constraint? Okay. So same origin policy makes it hard to mash up. In many cases, your application, meaning your page, wants to access the data or script from different public websites like a Flickr, Yahoo, Google, right? So you want to access those contents by sending maybe Ajax request. Okay. So I mean, this is a common the requirement in many applications today, because typically an application will mash things up from different domains, right? Okay. And another reason why there is a problem of this single or same origin policy constraint is because some sites wants to use a subdomains. As I said before, store.jpassion.com and news.jpassion.com. These guys are in fact from the same company, but this company decide to use a different domains for different web locations, right? And you want these guys to be able to access each other, right? But same origin policy will prevent it. Okay. So these are so the reason for SOP, same origin policy, is to prevent the cross-site scripting problem. However, it actually caused some downside, okay, as mentioned on this slide. So what is a workaround? There are a few workarounds. The first workaround is the client, meaning browser, will ask the server to access the document on behalf of it. So so this is basically instead of the browser connecting to a different domain directly, it will actually try to talk to its own server, okay, meaning the server it came from, and the server will actually access the different domain on behalf of the browser. And obviously this is not efficient, right? Basically, instead of going directly to the website, you always have to go back to your server to access it, and all the server need to be actually configured. So this is a chore. Okay. Another workaround is JSONP. That is JSON with padding. Okay. This takes advantage of the fact that the SOP does not apply insertion of the JavaScript code, and I'm going to explain what it means in detail when we talk about JSONP. So obviously JSONP itself is a little bit of kludge. So the web community has decided they need a better way of handling this problem. So they came up with a standard called the cross-origin resource sharing. It is a standard. It's called the CORS, and it's a standard. So by using CORS, basically browser and server will actually kind of understand each other, and they will actually allow the browser to access a different domain. Okay, so we'll take a look at JSONP and CORS later on in detail. Okay. Okay, any questions in terms of the concept of SOP, same origin policy? Okay, no question? Then let's do exercise 1. Okay. All right. Ajax cross domain. Okay, so by the way, we are going to use a Maven project. Okay, so the open the Maven project using your the Eclipse or NetBeans or IntelliJ IDEA, and we are going to import the project. Okay. And in order to experience this problem, same origin policy problem, you do not want to run it within bracket, because the brackets, when it opens the browser, it actually disables that security check. In fact, in your Chrome browser, if you run it with this disable web security, then it will actually turn that security SOP constraint off. Okay, so make sure you do not turn it off. Do not turn this on. Okay, because we want to experience it in exercise 1. Okay, so let's the static eclipse and import the Maven project on the samples Maven directory. Okay. And we are going to work on same origin policy jQuery project. So this is the web project. Okay. Okay, so I have imported already same origin policy jQuery. Okay, so this is the one. Okay, so what you want to do is first you want to make sure you build it. So you right click it and run as, and then and Maven install. Okay, so we are going to rebuild it, and then you're going to run it. Okay, on a server. Okay, so it's built. So we are going to right click, run as, and run on server. And I'm going to use the TC server that comes with the STS and finish. So when it's up and running, it should display this page. Okay. Okay, so we have 2 buttons here, and the first button is we are going to access the file from the same origin. Okay, and the next button is we are going to access the file from a different origin. And when we are accessing a file from a same origin, this should work fine. So it's an Ajax operation. The data is coming from the server, the same server, test JSON.js file, and then we actually update this particular string. However, let's actually open the developer tool. Let's try to click this guy, the second guy. Now, if I try to access a file that is not from the same server, okay, so by the way, the server, this particular, the code came from is localhost 8080, okay, but this one is trying to access a file from jpassion.com/ajax directory. So when I click this guy, you are going to experience this problem. So it says XML HTTP request cannot load jpassion.com ajax test.json file because of access control allow origin. So this is the basically message based on the SOP, same origin policy, does not allow you to access any document from a different domain. So your original domain is this localhost 8080, right? But you're trying to access this guy. So that's why it doesn't allow you to do that. Okay, so that is basically what we are going to experience. So let's take a look at the code. So this is the index.html file. Okay, so if you take a look at this this source, take a look at the view source. Okay, so this is the code. Okay, so I'm going to just use the documentation here. So this button, this is the first button, and this is the second button. So let's take a look at the first button. So remember that Ajax method of jQuery yesterday we learned. Okay, so here it is actually getting the test.json file because it doesn't specify any directory. It is actually getting from the same directory. So if you take a look at this guy, oops. So if you take a look at the src here, main web app, and this is index.html file, and we also have a test.json file, right? So this file is actually from the same server as far as the index.html file is concerned. Okay, so that should work fine. Okay, so it received the response and then it just displayed the name and age. Okay, so that's the reason it worked fine. So I just to show you index.html file, and that this is the same from the same server. Okay, now the second one, when you click this guy, as we have seen, it didn't work because of the same origin policy constraint. Okay, now the reason is because it's trying to access a file from jpassion.com/ajax test.json. Okay, because obviously this is a different domain from localhost 8080. this index.html file came from, right? So that's the reason it didn't allow to access it. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna let you experience this problem. I'll give you 10 minutes, and let me know if you have any questions, and we'll move. Okay, so what is JSONP? So JSONP stands for JSON with padding. Okay, and I'm going to explain why they use the term padding later on. So what is the basic idea of JSONP? Okay. So JSONP is almost like a kludge or even a hack, taking advantage of the fact that same origin policy does not prevent the insertion of dynamic script element into the document, even if the inserted code is from a different origin. Okay, this might be a little bit confusing to you. Okay, so we're gonna do some hands-on lab, so you will have a better idea. Insertion of the script. Okay, insertion of the script is allowed. Okay, so basically JSONP, in the JSONP scheme, the server, a different domain the server in the different domain will insert some script into the page, and then that code will be executed on the client. Okay, so by doing that, JSONP enables cross-domain access by taking advantage of this fact. Okay, so if you have not heard of JSONP and don't understand the concept of it, yeah, this particular bullet point might be a little bit still confusing. Okay, so don't worry about it. I'm going to actually use, in the hands-on lab, I'm going to explain this one, and you're going to actually play around with this concept. Okay. So JSONP allows this cross-domain access by taking advantage of the fact that JavaScript code could be still inserted. Okay, not executed directly, but insertion is okay. Okay, you could dynamically insert JavaScript from different domain carrying JSON data in them. Okay, so if the server in a different domain wants to actually pass back the data, meaning if your client wants to get the data from a server in a different domain, that server could actually send back the JSON data in the form of inserted JavaScript code. Okay, so this is actually what JSONP is: a JSON data padded with a function call. Okay, so that's the reason it's called a JSON with padding. Okay, so what gets inserted is something like this. So this is the data that wants to be passed to the client. This is the data client wants from a different server and different domain, right? Okay. In order to pass this data, it will be in the form of a function in the JavaScript code, JavaScript function code. Inside you have this particular JavaScript object. Okay. So now, in order to this JSONP to work, so this is the data. These 3 lines of data is coming from the server. Okay, and it will be inserted. Okay, and so client now has to have my JSONP function. So client will actually execute this function, and then that function will actually extract this data. Okay. All right, I'm sure you guys got confused. Okay, how many of you are not confused? I assume everyone is confused at this point, right? Okay. All right, so let's move on, and we're gonna actually do hands-on lab, and I'll explain it. So in order to have this JSONP to work, both client and service have to follow an agreed upon setup. Okay, so client-side setup that has to send some indication to the service that it wants to talk to JSON-enabled service, typically by sending the name of the function as like a callback parameter. Okay, and that is an indication from the browser, meaning client, indicating that it wants the service to send back response wrapped with this name of function. So in this case, my JSONP function. So client will send back send the request using callback equal my JSONP function, and then it's basically asking the server, the server, when it wants to send the data, pad my JSONP function with the data it wants to send. Okay, and client also has to provide a JavaScript function named with name of function. Okay, all right. Now server side, whenever it wants to send back the data, it has to use this name of function and then the data it wants to send in the form of JSON object. Okay, so these are the setup that need to be done on both client and server. Okay, all right. So JSONP support in jQuery and Dojo. We're not going to talk about Dojo. We're going to just talk about jQuery. In JavaScript libraries such as Dojo and jQuery, the name of the function gets automatically generated and sent to the server. So instead of you actually manually sending this way, excuse me, jQuery or Dojo, it will create one for you. Okay, and then the client has to pass agree upon parameter, typically callback. So underneath it will just kind of use the name of the function that was generated by the library. And then when the data is received, this library, jQuery library, remove this red colored portion and will just pass the JSON data. So by using jQuery or Dojo, your code is going to be a lot simpler. Okay, you don't have to deal with the name of the function, because name of the function in the JSONP scheme is basically is sent to the server. Then when it comes back from the server, it's just removed in order to get the data, right? So the sending that name of the function and then removing the name of the function. Let me actually repeat that. Sending name of the function as part of the request, and then removing name of the function in the response is done by the the jQuery library. Okay. All right, so this is Dojo case, and let me just move on to jQuery case. So in this case, basically when you are using, so you're going to in fact using getJSON method in jQuery object, and you provide, only thing you have to do is basically call back and you just say question mark. And basically you are indicating to the jQuery library, create a function name for me. Okay. And then it will be sent to the server. Server saw this callback request parameter, and it knows that client wants to have data in the form of JSONP, so it will actually use whatever function name that was actually generated by jQuery when it sends back the data. So when the data is actually sent back from the server and it's received the jQuery library, it will remove that function and then it will just get the data in the form of result. So you should be able to use result right here. Okay. All right. Yeah. This is probably I'm gonna actually get to the hands-on lab after this slide, so you'll have a better understanding. Now, so this JSONP is in a sense of a hack, as I said, because it's very hard to debug and there is no error handling. So if you don't get any error, you don't get even any error indication, even if your server throws an error. Okay, and you cannot really cancel or retry the request. You're at the mercy of the various browser author options of correct behavior for dynamically generated script tags. Okay. And debugging is somewhat more difficult. And the biggest problem, however, JSONP is that can be used with only trusted site. Okay, basically you are executing JavaScript code coming from a server, right? And executing JavaScript code from a server that you don't know about is a very, very scary thing. Okay, so the JSONP is not recommended to be used in untrusted environment. Okay, so this is definitely a constraint. Okay. All right, so let's do exercise 2, and again, I promise you will have a better understanding on what goes on underneath. Okay. All right, so what we are going to do is JSON code insertion during runtime. So this, basically, I'm going to actually simulate in the 2.1. We are going to simulate the code insertion in a different server, and you can tell whether it works fine. Okay. So we are going to actually use script insertion simulator Maven project. Okay, so let's run that guy, script insertion simulator. So let's build and run it. So I'm gonna just Maven install. Okay, it's built, and then I'm going to run it. Run as run on server. Okay, so you can tell it worked, right? Successful response and Sang Shin's age is 99. Okay, so you can tell it works okay. Okay, now let's take a look at the index.html5. So this is where so let's take a look at this code. Let's take a look at the code from here first. So this is a URL, and obviously this is the remote different server. Okay, so I'm running this application in the localhost 8080, and I'm trying to access different server, jpassion.com, Ajax test.jsonp.js file. Okay, and if you take a look at this file, let's actually take a look at this file first. Okay, I'm gonna just copy this guy, and here, if you just take a look at this, this is the contents of the file. My JSON function, and then this is the data: name, hobby, and age. Okay, all right. So that is the JSON file that I'm going to access. Okay, now let's take a look at this. Now this shows dynamic script insertion. We are inserting a script. First of all, we are creating script element. So I can actually use the create element method of the document object, and I'm creating script element. Okay, and then I'm setting the URL for that for that script element. I'm setting the src. So I'm actually dynamically adding script element with this URL during runtime. Okay, all right, and this is allowed. This is allowed. Okay, I can just add the script element with the URL. Okay, now I'm inserting that script into the head element. Okay, so you can see I don't have any script here, right? But basically this code, okay, I'm adding the script element with this URL right here programmatically. So I'm programmatically adding the script. Okay, all right. So now basically when I insert it, and then it's going to run it. Okay, when it runs it, it basically runs this code, right? It runs this code, and you can see this is the JavaScript function. This is the name of the function, and this is the data. This is an argument. It's passing JavaScript object as an argument. Do you agree with that? So when that gets executed, you need to have that function. Okay, so when you actually see this guy, when this code is executed inside the script, we need to have that function here, right? So that's the reason on the client side you have to have a function of the same name. So this function will receive response, and that response is in fact the data that you want to get from this particular server. Does this make sense, guys? I'll let you actually digest this one. Okay, so the study, the JSON file, and this is the that guy. So I want you to change. So if I change the suppose this is a simulator. Okay, so if you take a look at, I'm gonna actually change things around, see whether it still works. Okay, so I have index.html file, and I'm gonna actually change this guy to function 1 to 3. Okay, so obviously that is different. This function name is different from the function that is being passed from this guy, right? All right, and then it will not work, because when this guy is inserted and then executed, it looks for this my JSON function in your client code. Okay, and since I don't have it, now it's changed 1 to 3, it is not going to work. Okay, so let me actually run it, and let's try to run it, and this time it is not going to work. Okay, okay, so if I do, oh, why did it work? The page, you know what, yeah, this is something that you want to actually make sure. Yeah, this is in fact from the cache. All right, so either you have to actually completely close the in this case the Chrome browser. Let me actually close all Chrome browser, and then let's actually run it again. Okay. Or you can actually disable all the caching. Oh, why still work? Yeah, yeah. So this is yeah. I have to in fact the let's actually try to setting and remove the cache and show advanced settings and content settings and manage exceptions, location, content settings. Okay, so I'm gonna try settings, clear browsing data, beginning of the time. I'm gonna actually try past hour. Okay, past hour. I want to clear all the browsing data. Okay, actually I'm gonna delete it during the past few days because I play around it as well. So past week. How about that? Clear browsing data. Okay. Now let's see whether it's failing as expected. I should actually delete just today. Any questions? So now let me actually explain. Yeah, while it's actually deleting it. So in this case, in this simulator case, you have to provide this my JSONP function in order to make it work, because when this code is being executed, is actually invoking this function. Okay. So that's what I meant. If you go back to the presentation, the setup is the client. Okay. Client has to provide a JavaScript function of this named name of the function. Okay. All right. And the server will actually send back the name of the function with the data, and that's basically that's basically the data I showed you from the server. Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's what I meant by this data. Okay, so now 2.2, if you're using JSON, if you're using jQuery, the construction of the function name and removal of the function name will be addressed by will be handled by jQuery. Okay, so let's actually try JSONP jQuery simple. So let's run that application. JSONP jQuery simple, and I think I built it before, so I'm gonna just run it. And here, okay, so the access is allowed through JSONP with a dummy JSONP function. And so if you click this guy, this one works fine. Sang Shin's hobby is streaming, and and this one should also work fine. Okay, so let's take a look at each of this case. Okay, the first case is this. So again, this is the remote different server. Okay, and then we have a test JSONP.js file, which is again the same thing of this guy. Okay. All right. Oops. All right. So basically, what you do is when you are sending a request using getJSON of jQuery object, you provide the URL, and then you provide whatever parameters. Okay. It's just the dummy parameters for now. Okay. And then you provide a callback request parameter, and then you provide a question mark. So basically, what you're saying is that I want the jQuery library to create the function name. Okay, and then pass it as the callback. So in fact, if you go back to if you capture the network for this guy, okay, you are going to, in fact, the where is the network? Yeah, I want to actually capture the traffic. Looks like it's again. Yeah. It looks like it's cached again. Okay, so I'm gonna just use the documentation. So so what it does is it actually creates some kind of function name like a JSONP and some numbers like this. Okay. Now when the response is received from the server, so this is the function name the server will actually pad to the data. Okay. And then that will be removed in the when the data is received from the server, that will be removed by the jQuery library, and then the actual data will be actually set in here, result. Okay. All right. So any of this, so in this case, by the way, yeah, so this is actually the data coming from the server. Okay. And but this guy is expecting the function name to be this, right? So this is not gonna work, right? So what happens is that if you have this function, in this case we have this function, so that's the reason this is being executed. Okay. All right, now if you actually comment this guy out, then then click this guy, it will not work anymore. Okay, so it will say my JSONP function is not defined. Okay, because the server send back this guy, the server sends back my request function. Yeah, so server sends back my JSON function, but since we comment, if you comment this line, 3 lines of code, then you are going to experience this problem. The my JSON function is not defined. Now, if you click this guy, now even if you don't have a my function, my JSONP function. So by the way, this is this is a function name that gets generated by JSON jQuery library. Okay, and that is a function name that will be padded to the data by the server. Okay, so in this case, this is the second button here, hello button 4. Okay, now because the same function name is sent and same function name is actually the received, and now the jQuery library should be able to extract the data, and then in a sense give you data like this, and this code will be executed. Okay, so that is basically what is happening in the server-side code. Okay, so when the server receives, so this is the server-side code. When the server receives a request, in this case, what it does is that it checks whether the request parameter has callback is in fact present or not. Okay, if it is present, then it will take the value of that callback, and then it will create response data that contains that callback function. So in this case, it will actually construct the callback and then the data. So this is the data it wants sent to, but it will be so that callback is name of the function, and then it will send this data. Okay, so in the form of like this, but the name of the function is actually something that client actually sent to. Okay, all right. Yeah, I felt like I'm mumbling a little bit to you guys, and hopefully you guys have understand it. Okay, so play around it, and if you don't understand, I'll actually do it one more time. Okay, 2.3 is using Dojo, and we're not gonna actually do that. Okay, all right. So I'm going to give you guys about 20 minutes to try this exercise, and let me know. I mean, I felt like I didn't explain to you guys very clearly. Okay, so you might be still confused. Okay, so let's talk about cross-origin resource sharing. CORS. So this is an answer to the problems that we have talked about so far. Okay, so workarounds that we have looked into so far are not really, desirable. So W3C came up with this CORS standard. It actually defines how browser and the server must communicate across the sources, the accessing sources across origin. Okay. Okay, so basically CORS is a standard on how browser and server must communicate to bypass this same origin policy constraint. And it is supported pretty much all browsers right now. And this is probably the most common way of addressing this cross-domain access. Okay? Now, the basic idea behind CORS is to use custom HTTP headers to allow both the browser and server to know enough about each other to determine if the request and response should succeed or fail. Okay, so this is again to address the limitation of JSONP as a workaround. So idea is that if the client and server have enough information each other, then the browser will actually allow the access to the different server. Okay, so that's what we are going to actually talk about in the following slide. So it's used when the server doesn't require cookie or session-based authentication to expose data for universal access. So this could be useful when you are basically talking when your application is accessing some public website for some public data. For example, you access the Google weather data, Google map data, and things like that. Okay. Okay, so how does it work? So the scheme goes like this. The client, when it's trying to access the different server, it will provide header access control allow origin header. Okay, and so if HTTP header is added to the page, then JavaScript from any domain will be able to read the page using Ajax. Okay, so if such a header is not present, and then same origin policy will be still applied and will prevent the page from being read by Ajax code from a different domain. Okay, so using CORS, the owner of the page, meaning the page that exposes specific data, can expose that page for others to call from their own domains. Okay. So the principle is that the owner of the page says it's okay for others to access my stuff, then CORS will allow it, otherwise the same origin policy is assumed. Okay, so let me actually rephrase what this is all about. Okay, I'm gonna actually move on to, okay, so let me actually repeat this guy, and again I'm gonna actually show you in the hands-on lab. So the scheme goes like this. So if a request contains access control allow origin header, okay, and it basically indicating what it's actually, it could be star, or it could be the location of the original server origin. Okay, and then the server will actually send back the indication that, oh, my data is allowed to be visible by anybody, like a Google map or things like that. And then browser, so basically the response will contain some field as well. Okay, so in that case, the browser will actually allow the data coming from a different server, like a Google map server, to be accessible. Okay, so I'm gonna actually show this interaction in the hands-on lab, and then maybe I'll get back to this slide again. Okay, so let's take a look at the CORS. So this is a CORS website, and basically what we are going to do is we are going to just inspect. This is a request header, so origin. So when the request header contains this origin, and response header says, oh, this is response. I'm gonna actually allow this guy to access my data. So when the browser saw the response with this field, then it will allow the browser to access that website. Okay, so that's basically, you know, all that is. Okay, so as long as there is this interaction, as long as you have origin field and access control allow origin field in the response, you know, you can think of single origin policy does not apply. That's basically the how CORS works. Okay, yeah, actually let me actually talk about the limitation of CORS as well, and then I'll do the lab. Okay, so issues of CORS. CORS is not yet available in all CORS is not available in all browsers. Okay, so you know, old browsers do not really understand the concept of CORS because it's not implemented. There are still many existing services that do not yet take advantage of this specification. So, you know, if the service does not handle this CORS request, you know, the client send the request with the right field, but the server does not respond correctly, then the SOP, same origin policy, is still applied. Okay. So in this case, this is just you know, we are gonna just let's CORS test. I want to actually use okay, so of course I'm gonna just use the Chrome browser, so let me just use a Chrome browser here, and now we're gonna just we are going to just take a look at the request and response headers. So if you take a look at the request header, oh, not this one, this one, yeah. So click invoke another site. So from this site, we are gonna go to another site. Okay, so we click this guy, and then we should what is the one? Oh, so this is the one. So yeah, so now, you know, we are going to take a look at request header. So request header has this origin field. Okay, and response header has access control allow origin. Okay, so as long as request and response have these two fields, okay, the response header has this access control allow origin, and request header has this origin field, that actually bypass the single origin policy, same origin policy, SOP. Okay. Okay, so I'll give you guys about 5 minutes to do exercise 3. Okay, so it's not that difficult, but maybe, you know, you might actually has to digest a little bit in terms of the concept. So I'll give you 5 minutes to do that.